Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us today because we're going to unpack something truly fascinating, the silent architecture of leadership influence. Look, we have all survived a meeting where the boss completely lost the room, right? But have you ever noticed how some incredibly smart, highly authoritative leaders can walk into a room and, for some inexplicable reason, suddenly just lose their entire team? We're going to break down exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how the best leaders prevent it, using some really eye-opening insights from our source material. Okay, let's dive right into this. Why do some managers lose respect the exact moment they speak? It's kind of jarring to think about, right? But the source makes a profound point right out of the gate here. Losing respect in a meeting is absolutely not about a lack of intelligence. And it's definitely not about a lack of authority or not having the right title. It is about something much more subtle and, honestly, much more deeply human that happens the very second a leader opens their mouth.
So, Section 1, the death of influence. Let's look at exactly how leaders lose the room.
The research gives us this absolutely stark, central thesis. Leadership influence quietly dies when people stop feeling heard. I want you to really notice the word quietly there. It's rarely a shouting match. It's almost never a dramatic walkout. It's a silent withdrawal. When nobody around a leader feels like their voice actually matters, the leader's actual real-world influence just evaporates, regardless of what's printed on their business card. And when people stop feeling heard, this wild negative cascade immediately follows. Just think about what they stop bringing to the table: honesty, creativity, effort, loyalty, and real collaboration. You can literally feel the room change when this happens. Trust just shrinks. People become careful. They get super guarded and emotionally distant. I mean, they might physically be sitting right there at the conference table, but mentally, they have completely checked out.
So, how does a well-meaning boss actually trigger this without even realizing it? Well, it usually happens in this fast-paced, totally destructive rhythm. A leader asks for input, but then, step 1, they interrupt the employee halfway through their sentence. Step 2, they correct them way too quickly. Step 3, they get defensive too fast. And step 4, they explain way too much. It's a completely self-defeating cycle. They're asking for engagement, but their immediate reaction instantly shuts that entire engagement down. Moving right along to Section 2, the cost of unsafe rooms and the illusion of productivity. Listen to this quote because it's a massive tipping point. Employees give leaders what feels safest instead of what's most honest. To the untrained eye, a meeting might look completely productive on the surface. People are nodding, taking notes, agreeing with the boss. But underneath all that, the team has totally stopped sharing bold ideas. They are just trying to survive the meeting. And the moment people no longer feel emotionally safe around leadership, performance doesn't just stall out. It quietly, consistently declines.
This is where we really need to flip the script on a corporate buzzword that gets thrown around all the time. Empathy is not softness. It is strategic influence. The absolute highest level leaders understand that listening is not just some passive activity, it's power. People support leaders who make them feel psychologically understood, not just professionally managed. Empathy is actually a hard-edged strategic advantage that completely changes how a room functions. Which brings us to Section 3, a tale of two managers and the hidden leadership advantage. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Picture two different managers handling the exact same meeting where an employee disagrees. Manager 1 immediately reacts, "No, that's not the issue. What we actually need is execution." Boom. The employee goes quiet, the whole room becomes stiff. Now contrast that with Manager 2, who pauses and says, "So what I'm hearing is that the current process is slowing the team down. Is that correct?" Instantly, the employee relaxes, the tension breaks, the conversation suddenly becomes collaborative instead of defensive. So why did Manager 2 get such a drastically better result? Well, it boils down to a fundamental law of human behavior. Make people feel heard before trying to lead them. People naturally trust leaders who take the actual time to understand before just reacting. If you try to push forward and lead before you've listened, you are going to hit a brick wall of resistance every single time. All right, part 4, empathy as strategic influence and triggering the positive cascade. We saw that nasty negative cascade earlier. Now consider the incredible business benefits when you actually get this right. When people feel genuinely understood, resistance just drops. Cooperation naturally rises. Communication improves because, hey, people aren't terrified to speak up. Innovation increases because bold ideas are actually welcomed, and loyalty deepens. Emotionally safe people contribute in a completely different way. They give you their absolute best work, not just their safest work. So, how do we actually pull this off? Section 5, the etiquette of leadership. Here are some powerful things you can start doing immediately. So the crucial point is this tiny 3-step behavioral shift you can use in your literally next meeting. Step 1, pause. Just stop for a second before responding. Step 2, paraphrase what you just heard. Say something like, so what you're saying is, or if I'm understanding you correctly. And step 3, ask one simple clarifying question. That tiny behavioral shift changes the entire emotional dynamic of a room instantly because it actively makes people feel less defensive. Because look, failing to use these steps is a massive risk. Emotionally intelligent leaders consistently outperform louder, more aggressive leaders simply by reducing tension rather than multiplying it. Unmanaged tension is a silent destroyer of business value. It just wrecks communication, trust, the speed of execution, creativity, and your overall influence as a leader. Here's a really deep truth about human nature. People aren't just going to remember your brilliant business decisions, they're going to remember their emotional memory of your communication. Ask yourself, when people walk out of a meeting with you, do they feel dismissed, interrupted, and judged? Or do they feel respected, understood, and psychologically valued? Because that emotional memory absolutely dictates how hard they are going to work for you tomorrow. Mastering these specific behavioral patterns is the whole ballgame for gaining genuine leadership respect. The source text actually mentions this great book called Mastering Professional Etiquette, and it explores this so deeply. It shows that etiquette isn't just about looking polished or wearing the right suit. It's about the communication behaviors that actively build trust, influence, executive presence, communication intelligence, and deep respect. It's about leading with both your authority and your emotional intelligence. So I'm going to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on today. Do people feel psychologically valued around you? Because honestly, if people have stopped opening up around you, your leadership influence is already shrinking, whether you've noticed it yet or not. Take a really hard look at your daily communication habits. Make the conscious shift to understanding before reacting, and just watch how fast your team's loyalty and performance completely transform. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to really reflect on this question in your next meeting.